Well, Brian, we are a full week beyond the early signing day, but it feels like every day now is a signing period for the Buffaloes. It just keeps coming in terms of the commitments. It slowed down a little bit. I mean, there was Christmas, I think they had three new commits. It was just flooding in, and they've got a lot of guys on board now. First off, happy holidays. I hope you had a good Christmas, despite the fact that we both had to work quite a bit. Are you hanging in there? First off,
Yeah, I mean, more so, I'm probably better than you because you obviously do, dive deeper into the recruiting than I am, and uh, but yeah, it's been a lot, and I was hoping that those Christmas guys would have just waited one more day. Like, do you have to do that on Christmas Day? But hey, if
well,
that's
it's
what they
exciting
want
for
to
the
do,
fans at least, right? That's what I kept trying to remind
sure,
myself of, is that this
yeah,
is Christmas gifts, and it's something that these people that are announcing on Christmas can kind of celebrate with their families being around.
yeah, that's true. But I thought of it selfishly and thought, can you just wait till tomorrow? But
No,
yeah,
I definitely felt that way at times. There's no doubt about it.
but luckily we had kind of a low key Christmas and some of our family plans changed, which allowed me to just be home and um, be able to handle all that stuff. But yeah, it's been a lot. It seems like every single day there's something new, and there's times that I'm like, well, I don't really have anything planned for today as far as writing a football story, and then a recruit will plan something for me and and commit. So yeah, that kind of changes day to day.
As of the recording of this video, and like I said, they are just trickling in at this point still. So, uh, depending on when you watch this video, there might be more additions. But right now, 16 high school signees, and six of those guys were already verbally committed to the Buffs when Deion Sanders took over. So 14 new 2023 high school additions since Coach Prime was introduced. Two new junior college signees. Both of them are offensive linemen. And then 13, 14 scholarship transfers. Well, it sounds like they're bringing in Mata as in scholarship, still trying to 100% make sure that's for sure. But that is a lot of new guys joining a football program in a short period of time. I've never seen anything like it. I doubt we'll see anything like it again. Still trying to catch our breath here, but just curious, what are your overall thoughts when you look at Coach Prime's early signing day haul?
Yeah, but I agree with you. I haven't seen anything like it either. But I will say I saw an ASU writer mention the other day that ASU's had even more additions under Kenny Dillingham than Deion. So both those teams with new teams or with new head coaches are changing the overall roster. And we knew Deion was going to overhaul this thing, right? And
Yep.
we're going to see how many more. I'm sure you get this question a lot, but I get asked a lot, how many more guys are coming? I think there's a lot more coming. Dion and his team was telling me a couple weeks ago they had 71 new players his first year at Jackson State, and so he's not afraid to completely overhaul this thing. And so I could see there being close to 50 new players by the time August rolls around, which would be another 18, 19 players. So I think they're not done, and it could be an interesting offseason as we go through. There's still we're going to talk about this, but there's still position groups I think that need to be addressed, and there's still a lot of things that need to be figured out. But yeah, it's a lot of people, new faces that we're seeing so far in a short period of time that we're not used to seeing this.
We're going to talk about, like you said, our favorite guys, both in the transfer class as well as the high school class. I think because there was not a lot of drama surrounding the recruitment of Shedeur Sanders, because Coach Prime at his intro press conference had him stand up and said he's coming. So I think I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking just how important that is. And there were so many reasons that made Deion Sanders a highly attractive candidate to take this head coaching job. It feels like the fact that he has a supremely talented son quarterback with 2 years of eligibility left was kind of the cherry on top of this whole thing, right? In terms of 2023, there is no more important addition than what he's going to bring to the mix.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I do think I've seen him on some Heisman lists. I think that's a little too much at this point. Um, to me, at this point in time, he's I wouldn't rank him higher than the fifth best quarterback in the Pac-12, just because he's got to prove it. Because you got Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Cam Rice is probably coming back, but he's still an extremely important piece of the puzzle for Colorado. And you mentioned he's the cherry on top. I think a lot of people are forgetting about how important that cherry is, and there is a lot of excitement about Deion, but having that quarterback is so huge because when was the last time the Buffs had a quarterback that people got really excited about? And, you and I have talked about it a
Montez,
lot.
I think, but
Yeah,
he never really panned out to the extent of his talent.
right. And, I think Montez was pretty good. I think Cepho brought a lot to the table, especially in that 2016 season. Obviously, his toughness was off the charts. One of my favorite guys to cover over the years. But as far as a quarterback to get people excited that you look at and say, that's a next level quarterback, you have to go all the way back to Coy Detmer, who was drafted in I think the 97 or 98
Yep.
draft to find, the last quarterback drafted from CU. And, that was probably the last guy that you looked at and thought, that's a pro quarterback. And so CU could actually have that this year. And I think, CU fans have probably been jealous of a lot of other fan bases around the country over the last 20 some years that have had pro quarterbacks. And we're not even talking about, USC, Ohio State, teams like that. I mean, there's teams like Western Kentucky that have had pro quarterbacks. When Mike Stanford was at Western Kentucky, his quarterback was Mike White, who's now the starting quarterback for the Jets. So, there's other programs that have had guys that have played in the NFL, but not the Buffs. So I agree with you. I think Shedeur Sanders is the biggest get, and it was the easiest get, but it was probably the biggest get.
And they have two high school quarterback signees that looked really good on tape. It looks like their skill set is going to fit really well into the offense that Sean Lewis likes to run. It does raise an interesting debate as to whether, okay, are you going to add another quarterback with experience to possibly back up Shedeur Sanders in 2023? Can you lure a quality backup to town, given the fact that it is the head coach's son that's expected to be the starting quarterback? So I don't know what they're going to do there. Maybe if Sean Lewis really, really likes these two high school quarterbacks, they roll the dice and go into next year without, adding another quarterback to that room. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, and at this point, we have not heard anything about what JT Stroud's going to do, and so for now, we include him on the roster, right?
Yeah,
And
for
so
now.
for now, and then Drew Carter as well. These are guys that I would have thought would have put their names in the transfer portal, and maybe they still will. But for now, they're still there. And if you go into the season, yeah, after what we saw this year, you probably don't want JT Stroud to be your starting quarterback. But if they're better all around, then maybe that's not a bad backup to have, somebody that's at least played a lot of football at the D1 level and in the Pac-12. But if you go get a backup out of the transfer portal, are you getting someone that's better than JT Stroud? You may or may not. So that might be the caliber of quarterback you're getting. As far as to your point, anyone that's a starter caliber quarterback probably isn't going to come here knowing that Shedeur is the quarterback for the next 2 years.
Well, I think what you'd want there, Brian, is more of a game manager as a backup at the quarterback position. And
Yeah,
we've talked about JT Stroud. It's just the turnover issues. I don't know how you overcome that, but let's move along. There's a lot of other topics to talk about.
yeah,
And I want to get your favorite guys in this class. One other thing I want to add before we do that is a thing that stands out to me when I look at the guys they're bringing in is just the overall size of the players, especially the linemen that they're bringing into Boulder. It feels like the early returns of the recruiting by Coach Prime's staff is going to make the job of Maurice Sims easier. That's something that I've had strength coaches say, that how our staff does as recruiters is going to make me look really good or really bad. And there's only so much you can do with certain bodies and abilities. There's certain guys that have a ceiling. And so if you recruit guys that have a ceiling that's through the roof, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but
yeah.
that has just all conference, all American potential, you look really good as a strength coach. Whereas if you're bringing in guys that just can't compete at the Pac-12 level, it's going to make you look bad.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that in previous years, like we've heard, there was certain coaches that had different plans that they would bring in, big guys that they would have to tear down then build back up. Well, that's a long process. Or they bring in, smaller guys that they would want to build up over time, and that's a long process. So, but if you're bringing in guys that are already, big, and you've got the right type of big that you want, then that makes it easier for Maurice Sims or whoever the strength staff is. And that's where, at least with these transfers, you guys that have already got college bodies and college experience, and some of these high school kids as well, they've already got college looking bodies, right? And we're used to seeing in the past some of these sort of baby fat type of linemen, right, that need some work over time. Whereas a lot of these guys they're bringing in now don't need that. They can probably plug and play.
All right. Without further ado, Brian, I'm curious, guys that you really like, both. Let's start with the high school and JUCO signees. Are there a few guys in there that you really like?
Yeah, I've always been a running back guy. Running back's always been one of my favorite. That's probably my favorite position growing up, and so I'm a Dylan Edwards fan. And I really like what he brings to the table. That's an easy one because he's the top rated high school signee in the class. But you watch his tape and it's like, wow, yeah, that kid's
Yeah.
pretty good. And so you can't help but get excited about him. But I also love linebackers, and I think that linebacker is a need here. I'm intrigued by uh, Kofi Taylor Barracks, right? The kid coming from London, just looks the part, and so he intrigues me. So he's one of my favorite sort of, I guess, under the radar type. I mean, he's one of those lower ranked guys in this class, but I like him. I think he's going to be an intriguing guy to watch. And then also Taj McCoy is another one that kind of intrigues me, as a defensive end.
With Kofi Taylor Barracks, I'm curious to hear how he fits in at the Under Armour All American game
Mhm.
early. Was that a week coming up? Just he's obviously going to be more raw than those other guys that have gotten a lot of coaching and have a lot of game reps under their belt. But if he's just even kind of hanging with those guys, I think that would be a pretty good sign for the future. And with him, a side note, I'm kind of nervous for my next cell phone bill. I reached out to him after he committed, just not even thinking that, he's over in London. So we do the interview. He's a joy to talk with, a great interview. We talked probably for 15 minutes. And then I got a text afterwards from Verizon saying, just so you know, you made an international call. And I'm like, I wonder what that even costs. So we'll find out there. Hopefully it's not too brutal. But yeah, I like your pick of Dylan Edwards. I mean, I know that he's playing in Kansas and it's not a Florida competition or Texas competition, but man, he looks so fast. Uh, I'm going to throw one guy out there that I don't even, at the recording of this, he does not have a rating yet because he was more of an under the radar guy. And that's Jack Wilty from the junior college ranks. He was a second team JUCO All-American. And because transfer portal recruiting has become such a big deal in college football, you some of these really talented JUCO guys go a little bit more under the radar. And I just Jimmy Searfoss did a story for our sites talking with Jack Wilty, and he had a comment about how he tries to be this really nice person, but he said when he gets on the field, he flat out said, "I'm an a-hole." And you watch his film, and Jack Wilty has got a mean streak to him. And I understand, JUCO ball up to Pac-12 ball is going to be a little bit of a jump, but I really enjoyed watching his tape. Uh, Omarion Miller, a four-star commit that was previously committed to Nebraska, averaged 22 yards per catch during his high school career. A big target at 6'2", 190 is another guy that stands out if we're going more chalk here with some of the higher rated guys. And then Adam Hopkins, also a blue chip recruit, really versatile. He could play and be an elite guy at either receiver or play in the secondary in college. He's going to play in the Under Armour All-American game as well. What about transfer additions, Brian? Any of those guys really stand out to you?
Yeah, and real quick, for the same reason you like Jack Wilty, I like Isaiah Jota as well. I think that
Yeah.
um, they hit pretty well on a couple of JUCO linemen there, and Jota obviously a JUCO All American. I'm excited to see what those two guys do. But as far as the transfers, I'm gonna go collection because offensive line is an area that this team has needed for a very long time. their best offensive lineman was Casey Roddick, and he's now going to Florida State. Tommy Brown was their other one. That doesn't look like he's coming back, and so they need an overhaul there. And Deion Sanders overhauled the offensive line and went and got a bunch of guys. And so one of my guys that I like is Tyler Brown, and I'm a little bit biased because he's one of the guys I met from Jackson State down in Atlanta a couple weeks ago, and I put this on Twitter, but that kid's going to be a fan favorite. I'm telling you right now, fans are going to love that kid. Super nice kid, and a pretty good player as well. And so I'm intrigued by him. He's already been hitting me up and asked me, okay, where do I get used furniture in the Boulder area? When I went up interviewing him and a few other guys, they were asking me, all right, what are the best burger joints? Where's the best pizza? And then they were like, how about the girls? What are the girls like up there?
What was your answer there, Brian?
Well, my first answer on that one, I said, I'm married. And then one of the other players says, well, you have eyes, don't you? And I said, you know what? Go to Boulder Creek in the spring. You'll be just fine. And
good answer. Good answer.
Yeah. But yeah, Tyler Brown's going to be, a fan favorite here, I think, and I'm curious to see how he fits into this offensive line. But I know it's not really one guy I'm talking about, but as a collection, I really like what they did offensive line wise in the transfer portal. I think that was so big, no pun intended, for them to rebuild that offensive line. And between JUCO and 4-year transfers, they went out and got what 5, 6 starting potential offensive linemen. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, sticking with your answer there and something I said earlier about just the size of the guys they're bringing in. Savion Washington coming in from Kent State, played right tackle for the Golden Flashes. He's got a familiarity already, obviously, with Bill O'Boyle, the new line coach. Sean Lewis has played in that system and is a big boy. And we talk about this, about taking Pro Football Focus grades with a grain of salt because they don't know what these guys' assignments are on every play, but Savion Washington's PFF grade is substantially better than anything that CU's O-line did this past year. And it wasn't a great unit, but it was an improved offensive line group in Boulder from 2021. So Casey Roddick's going to Florida State. So the fact that Savion graded out that well, not against Pac-12 competition, but I like him a lot. We can't go any further in this video, Brian, without talking about Travis Hunter.
Right. Well, I thought that was the easy answer, so that's why I avoided
it. It is. But if we finish this video and we don't talk about the #1 ranked transfer in the entire country, we probably didn't do the best job of really breaking things down. But you were down there in Atlanta for the Celebration Bowl. You got to watch a practice. What is Travis Hunter that maybe the rest of us haven't seen when watching them, Jackson State, in a game?
Yeah, I actually ran into him in the hotel out there as well, and chatted with him briefly, introduced myself. And I said, "You coming to Colorado?" And he says, "I don't know yet." So I tried to get a little scoop out of him, but he wouldn't give it up then. But seems to be a nice kid. He's not a big corner. He was what's he listed at? Where is he here? 6'1". I think that's a little generous. He didn't seem that tall to me. I'm about 5'11", and he seemed about my height. But the practice was a walkthrough, but super talented kid, obviously. And we all saw it during that game at receiver that, and at corner, he got burned early in that game, but played a pretty good game. And then, obviously talented receiver. So, the kid's off the charts talent-wise, confidence-wise, and he's going to bring a lot to the table. I'm curious to see how much offense he actually plays. He didn't play a ton of offense at Jackson this year, but we got to see a lot of it, at that Celebration Bowl. So I'm curious to see how much offense he actually plays, but super talented.
Yeah. I just love the elite guys where they make it look effortless. And not to say that Travis Hunter doesn't work hard and all that, but he looks like just one of those guys that could roll out of bed and do something that 99.99% of people can't do. He just has that fluidity to his game. And so that part is just really exciting. Colorado just doesn't bring in highly regarded, talented guys like that. I know they had Antonio Alfano in the program for a blink of an eye, but we had heard that there was maybe some concern about whether this was really going to ever work out, and unfortunately, it didn't work out. Like you said, it doesn't seem like Travis Hunter has that. Now he's going to do the YouTube stuff, and your head coach is all about that stuff too. So that's not really a knock on him. That's just the
Yeah.
way a lot of young people are now. And I think some older people kind of hold that against this younger generation, but this is the generation they were raised in, and it's different than ours. And so I don't think that he's got any red flags as far as that goes.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, it's different for us. We're not used to it, and we didn't grow up with it. But you have to look at that and say that's this generation now. And just to your point, and so I don't look at that as a red flag. I think that's just what these kids do. And I think if that helps build your brand, then go for it. With Travis, I think I agree with you. I think he's got a ton of talent, and if you want to market yourself that way, go for it. He's going to have a lot of work to do. I do think that he's got to put on some size to really compete with some bigger receivers in the Pac-12 level, but he's certainly got the talent, and as long as he has work ethic with it, then I think that he's going to be an unbelievable player here at Colorado.
All right, so they've got this impressive group of early signees. We've broken a lot of that down. We'll continue to talk about these guys, especially as we get into spring ball. Then you're getting more concrete information about who's really standing out in these practices. But I'm just curious, what position groups do you feel still a little unsure about when you look at this Colorado football roster?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of them, and sorry, I'm looking at my little spreadsheet here so I can make sure I have all my numbers and everything here. But I think linebacker and edge are two places that they inside linebacker and edge are two places that I think they still got some work to do there, especially on the edge. They bring in Taj McCoy that can play there, but there's not a lot of guys there that I look at and say, yeah, these guys are ready to go. What about you?
Yeah, outside linebacker is number one on my list. And one thing that I feel is missing on this team as it stands right now is a top level feature back. Now, Dylan Edwards might come in and have a role right away. We talked about his speed. He's not a big back. I've said this before. He kind of reminds me of those Chip Kelly scat back types that you're gonna, when they get the ball in open space, look out, they're going to be explosive, but they're not going to be carrying the football 15, 20 times a game. I like Deion Smith, especially as a young man. I hope he gets to come back and compete. We like some of the stuff we saw with Anthony Hankerson. There's talent in that room, but there's not that one guy that you point to and go, this is an all conference caliber running back. They flirted with Ray Davis, who was a second team all SEC back at Vanderbilt this past year, but he ended up going to Kentucky. So that's one area I'm kind of curious as they continue to round out this roster if they go there. And one other note, I have felt for a really long time that with the previous staffs, it didn't seem like safety depth was ever truly addressed or valued the way that I did. And then there would be injuries there. And I'm wrong about a lot of things, but that one I felt like I was always right about in the offseason of saying they need more guys at safety. That's a position with targeting now where you need more depth. Safeties can help you on special teams. That is a position you want to have a ton of depth at, and you can rotate those guys in. They get banged up. They play a physical position on the field. And so I like some of the guys that they have at that position. Obviously, we love what we saw from Trevor Woods with his development. We heard really good things about Dylan Dixon and kind of his future. They did bring in a safety transfer from Jackson State. But it's just one of those positions, like, I don't know if you can have enough talented safeties.
Yeah, I agree with you, and especially the way Trevor Woods plays. I mean, he's a potential targeting candidate, most weeks, right? And I don't mean that I'm not trying to put him down or anything. That's just the way he plays. And he had one last year, and he had a couple that were called and then reversed. And so you know that position lends itself to that. And so I look at it and say, all right, do you have Trevor Woods and Cameron Silman Young or Craig? So I keep calling him Silman Craig or Silman Young in my mind. But anyway, do you have those two guys as the starters? But then you also have Jeremy Mack, Tyron Taylor, Dylan Dixon, these are guys that got experience this last year. Is that enough? I don't know. And so I'm probably with you that I'd like to see another safety come in here, kind of a game ready safety. But to me, that's below. I still look at this team and I don't see a high level pass rusher. And that concerns me. And I think at inside linebacker, there's still a lot of question marks. I mean, edge wise, other than Taj McCoy, you don't have anybody that you've brought in. And so you got Joshua Gustav as a veteran there. He's the only upperclassman, outside linebacker at this point. And so, but then you have an inside linebacker, Levanta Bentley, who looks like he's going to be a pretty good player. But beyond that, you got a bunch of guys that have played a little bit, but not a whole lot. And so I'm more concerned about inside linebacker and edge than safety. But I agree with you. I'd still like to see another safety come in here.
All right, I think that's enough of a breakdown for now. We could go for 4 hours talking about all these guys that have signed on to the Coach Prime era in Boulder. Real quick, it is a dead period right now for high school recruits until January 13th. So there's going to be 3 weekends in January leading up to February 1st, which is the regular signing day this year, where 2023 prospects can take some official visits. And then 2024s, 2025s can take unofficials during those weeks. So it's going to be really busy with visitors. And then there's one difference in there, Brian, with transfer portal players. There's a stretch in there between January 4th and the 8th where high school recruits can't visit, but transfers can. So I would imagine in that window of time, the 4th through the 8th, you're going to see a lot of visits with transfer portal guys. And then the whole month of February is a dead period before the spring visit period begins. I hope that both of us have the ability to take a little vacation time in February, because this has been a long stretch going all the way back to when camp started, and even a week before that with Pac-12 Media Day out in Los Angeles. It's felt like we've covered 3 seasons in one, starting with Carl Durrell, Mike Sanford, and now Deion Sanders. It's been a whirlwind ride, and it's exciting though for fans right now. And so that part of it makes the job a little bit more fun, and willingness to, put personal life on the back burner a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know how many beat writers have covered 3 head coaches in the last three months with their football program, but it has been a lot. I think one of the biggest question marks with these recruiting weekends coming up is which cars does Deion bring in for that weekend? We've already seen the Ford GT, and he had a McLaren one weekend. So I'm curious to see what kind of cars he brings in those weekends. But outside of that, I agree. I hope that you get some time off. I get some time off. We both need it.
Yeah, it's got to be exhausting for guys like John Snelson and his team of guys too. But it is cool that their talent gets to shine through, and they've done such a great job with some of these videos that they're putting together that are as good as anything I've ever seen out there with college football recruiting.
Yeah, and there's, to your point, there's a lot more eyes on their talent now than there ever was before because of the prime effect, right? With CU social media accounts blowing up with followers. And so I'm happy for guys like John that get more eyes on their work.
They've already got 2 2024 commits on board, a 5-star for 2025. We got to push that off until the future, because there's just so much stuff going on with guys that are going to be part of the 2023 team that we've got to dissect. But Brian, it was fun catching up with you virtually, and maybe we can connect, have lunch one of these days soon.
Sounds good. I have to bring Tyler Brown and those new guys out to find the best burger and pizza in town.
There we go. Sounds like a plan. All right. Thanks to everybody for tuning in.